Hello students, welcome to another introduction to economics class. If you're new here, I'm Favor Olariwaju, aka Miss Favor. Do me a favor, God's favor, and I'm so happy to continue to be your instructor for this class. So today we're going to be covering chapter 11, which is on public goods and common resources. And so all the chapters that I've been covering are based off on the textbook by Gregory Mankiw, Principles of Macroeconomics and Principles of Microeconomics. But for this particular chapter, it's going to be based on Principles of Microeconomics, so with the MICRO. Yes. So quickly, what is public goods? Public goods are free goods and services usually provided by the government that citizens or individuals don't have to specifically pay for. So technically it's like a free good that's provided by the government for public use, right? However, is it really free? No, nothing in life is really free. There's someone always bearing a cost somewhere. So but why do the government see a need to provide such goods and services to the public? It's because the government and the society have a total value for the need, benefit for the need that exceeds the cost. So for instance, let's talk about national defense, or even like public parks, public schools, public hospitals. There's a national and societal need that values it way more than the cost of implementing such public goods or providing such public services. And the reason the government steps in is because these goods are often too expensive for the private sector or private firms to actually produce by themselves. So you know that private individuals, private companies usually have an incentive for profit. Their goal is to make profit, right? So if a private company is to provide such public goods and services, then the cost will be very high. The cost that they would charge us to be able to use such goods and services will be very high. So this is why the government steps in to avoid such, market forces and inefficiency with the private sectors trying to gain profit off us, right? So the government steps in and says, hey, all of us are going to enjoy the benefits of these goods. So the government often uses the taxpayers' money, right, to fund these public goods and services. So there are many examples of public goods and services all around us, including things like financial aid or poverty resources to help low-income families, like the SNAP, which is a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program to help low-income families to be able to shop for groceries at a cheaper rate. There is also Earned Income Tax Credit, which helps low-wage workers to be able to get some refund on their wages. So something that I want to really emphasize is that all public goods are non-excludable and non-rival. What does non-excludable mean? So non-excludable means that you can not exclude people from using the good. And oftentimes what that means is that it is free. So when something is free, then that means anyone has common access to it, right? And then non-rival means that your consumption of the good, it doesn't reduce what is left for other people to use, right? So like a public park, for instance, many people can be in a public park at the same time. And the fact that I am in a public park doesn't reduce the space that is left for another person to use in a public park, right? Same thing with a public lake or a public mountain, right? So it's open to everyone. One person's consumption doesn't reduce what is available for other people to consume. So that is not about a public good. And examples like we mentioned are public parks, library, schools, or even national defense. So what is the exact opposite of public goods? That would be, you guessed right, private goods. So private goods are excludable. And by excludable, that means it is not free. You got to pay, right? And also, it is rival in nature. So one person's consumption reduces what is left for others. So what are examples of private goods? These would include something like gym subscription. So you got to pay for your subscription. So it is excludable, right? Those who don't pay are not able to participate in the gym services. How about rival? So gym subscription is rival too. If all the people are using the treadmill in the gym, you got to wait until one person leaves before you can use the treadmill, right? So that is a very good example of a private good. This is a funny one. How about chickens? So whatever chicken you buy for yourself, whether it's a whole chicken or pieces of chicken, it's been paid for, so no one can come contend that chicken with you, right? It's yours to eat, right? Or yours to do whatever you want to do with it, right? So in that way, it is excludable. And then once you consume the chicken, there's nothing left for other people to consume, right? So if you take out of the chicken, you reduce the quantity that's left for others to consume. So chicken is a good example. Another example is private events, right? So private events usually have a guest limit, and also you got to pay to be able to attend a private event, whether it's a concert, whether it's a private party, whatever the case is. So even when you go to a restaurant to eat food, right, you got to pay to gain access to the food that you're going to eat, right? And at the same time, if the restaurant is filled up, other people cannot enter. You got to wait for people to leave before you can get a seat at the restaurant, right? So all of these are good examples of private goods. Now there is a third type of good, and this is known as common resources. So common resources are non-excludable because it's common, right, as the name implies, but it is rival in nature. It's non-excludable, so it is free, right, but then it reduces the consumption for others. What are good examples of this? This would include things like the deer in the forest, or even rare animal species, whatever kind of animals that is, including elephants. Elephants are very famous in Africa for using their ivory tusk. Then there's also water resources, such as the ocean fish, for instance, fishes in the ocean. Such that even though the ocean is free for everybody to use, if there's too much usage, then we're going to run out of fishes to consume, right? Same thing with grazing of land, right? So the land is free, public parks are free, public land is free, but if, too many animals are grazing on the land, then the grass is going to run out and then the animals are going to have to move to another place to graze. So that is good examples of common resources. And the fourth type of good is what we call club goods. So club goods are similar to private goods in the sense that it is excludable, right? But it is non-rival. So it's excludable, meaning that you have to pay for it. But once you pay for it, there's unlimited access, right? So for instance, streaming services. So if you say Netflix or Prime, these are good examples of club goods that you gotta pay for, but once you pay, you got access to it, right? For as long as you paid for it. Now let's talk about a road. In general, a road can be any of these four goods, depending on specific characteristics. So roads that you travel on, right? Okay, so if a road is congested, then it is rival, because if it's congested, then it prevents other people from coming on the road because everybody's just stuck, right? And in that case, if it is rival, a congested road is rival, then that means it is either a private good or a common resource, right? So remember, rival, right? So now, how do we distinguish how can it be private or common resource? Simple. Is it a toll road? Does it require to pay toll services? If it does, then it is a private good. So this would be congested toll road. However, if you don't have to pay for toll, then a congested non-toll road would be a common resource. Okay? How about if it's not congested? Then it's either a public good or a club good. Again, what makes the difference will be if it's a toll or a non-toll road, right? So for a non-congested road, if it is also a non-toll road, then that makes it a public good. And for a non-congested road, if it is a toll road, then it becomes a club good. Now, there's a common problem with public goods and common resources. Because of the fact that they are non-excludable, aka free, it tends to lead to what we call a free rider problem. And this simply means that because it is free, people tend to overuse it and abuse it, leading to the deterioration of these goods and services. So what is the remedy? The remedy is that the government can step in based on the cost-benefit analysis which we learned at the beginning of this class. If the total benefit for the goods and services exceeds the cost of maintaining it, then the government continues to maintain these goods and services, but using the taxpayers' money. So increase the tax on these goods and services so everybody pays their tax. You can't escape tax, right? So technically, even though you are not paying extra for these goods and services, the money you've paid as tax covers it and helps with the maintenance of such goods and services. And other things the government can do is to sell licenses and permits. So in other words, you can't have certain rare animal species without having the appropriate license or permit, right? So that is a form of government regulation that can help to curtail excessive usage and misuse of public goods and common services. Government could also enforce property rights and agreements, or in worst case scenarios, privatize the land. So if the government has done all these rules and regulations and it's still not working, then just, sell it to the highest bidder, auction it off, and privatize the land so that the private entity can properly manage the land or the whatever natural resource is in question. And that is that for chapter 11. As usual, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You never can tell who this educational information would be helpful to, and your support goes a long way in keeping this channel active. Thank you.